Cloud and Clear, the podcast by SADA for innovative business leaders and technology enthusiasts, where we explore how Google Cloud is transforming the industry and what that means to you. Now here's your host, Tony Safoian.
Very excited to have a very special guest on this Cloud and Clear. We have a customer we've been working with for a couple of years, and they've been doing some amazing things. And I'm really excited to have on the podcast Justin Falciola, Chief Insights and Technology Officer of Papa John's. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, great to be here, Tony.
Before we dive into the current environment, kind of in the U.S. and the world, and also some of the technology work and community work that Papa John's is doing, I really like to know more about you and your background. I see Rutgers on there. We spent quite a bit of time in Piscataway working with Colgate, so we drove by Rutgers a bunch of times out of New Jersey. So you started your career there in information systems in your sort of education track, and you've just had an amazing ascent up to your current position. I think people would love to hear a little bit more about that journey.
Sure. Yeah. First and foremost, I love Italian food, Jersey guy. My wife and I have 6 kids. Not always beautiful, but we love them regardless. And we've had a great time here in Louisville, Kentucky, just growing with the Papa John's family. So some of my background, as you mentioned, in financial services, I started at Intel and went into a career really in the finance space from a technology perspective. What's amazing about finance is just how many different disciplines there are. Tony, you could just really explore that whole world for a long time from a technology professional standpoint. Have always loved architecture. Have always loved digital channels, e-commerce, things that touch the customer. But from a career standpoint, both in the financial services realm at JPMorgan Chase and Fifth Third, and then at Humana, what I also fell in love with was analytics. And what you really learn is data at scale. Those type of companies are very information dense, very information rich. And I'll tell you that the most fun I've had in my career has certainly been at Papa John's. Have appreciated so much all the teams I've worked with throughout my career. I've learned so much, like so many of your audience and other CIOs and CTOs on this call have learned so much from so many great leaders. But I've really had a fun time at Papa John's because it's simple. Pizza's supposed to be fun. That's what we do every day.
Yeah, and you've been there for almost 4.5 years, so you've had the opportunity to probably build the team in your vision, right? And sort of hire the folks and structure the organization in the way that you'd want it to be composed. So can you tell me a little bit about the engineering culture at Papa John's and how you think about building the team that has the passion and the capability to deliver on the company's vision and yours?
Sure. Yeah. So, it's really a privilege to work with the team here. And like you said, we've kind of grown together and learned together over the years. When I came into the organization, I was leading up the digital solutions space. So really, we were very focused on, solutions, applications, communications that touched the customer. Think of our websites and search engines and push notifications and apps and emails and all those things. And one of the first challenges we had to address kind of together as a leadership team was making sure that there was an engineering culture that kind of pervaded what we did, but that it was very data driven as well. So again, from an analytics standpoint, analytics isn't just for folks in finance or marketing or HR or anywhere else, right? IT is part of the business. So how do we use this rich set of data? If you're in technology, you have access to more data than any other department in the company. So how do we use it to improve our own process, to get insight that can help the business? So that was one of the early things that we started to address kind of culturally, is just getting everybody behind that. Later the role kind of took a turn into enterprise architecture. Again, when you look at a company, any company that's in retail, you often focus on the edge of the enterprise. What's ultimately touching the customer, as you should, but behind the scenes, there's a whole lot of infrastructure that's shared. Whether it's through your supply chain or through your back office or through other systems. So what we had to really address was, what is the best architecture that can help us be nimble, that can help us be kind of customer first. So enterprise architecture, those principles and standards and patterns really helped drive that. And we have definitely not arrived yet, but the team has done fantastic work in that regard. And then on the analytics piece, we bootstrapped a little more of a data engineering mindset to data warehousing, and a little bit more of less of just pure descriptive analytics, and starting to move into more diagnostic and prescriptive realms. And again, we still have a lot to learn in support of our business and support of our customers, but I'm really proud of where the team has gone. So after having really spent some time in each of those areas, in 2018, started to lead the entire team.
What's exciting for us is we work with a set of customers and generally in two categories. One is traditional enterprise companies who don't come from technology, or traditional industrials in various verticals. And then we work with a bunch of digital natives. And what I admire the most is traditional companies that have transformed to sort of act and behave and think like the digital natives, which is, I think, what we all aspire that they get to, but not every traditional company can make that kind of a technology and cultural shift. So, and I also believe that, large organizations used to rely very heavily on just sort of outsourcing what ultimately became to be acknowledged as core competencies. And I love how you've brought a lot of that in-house and built that within your teams.
Yeah. Tony, we don't believe that we've got a lock on anything. And I think that's the first, it's actually one of our company values, about innovating to win. So, we constantly scan the horizon to say, hey, what can we learn from others? That might be, a team in a different area of the country, a different area of the building. That might be a competitor. That might be a technology leader. That might be someone in a different industry. So just being courageous enough to ask those questions and challenge ourselves is definitely, it's definitely part of our values and really mindset. But I think what's a lot harder, and you kind of hinted at this, is how do you take what you're good at already? If you weren't born digital, let's say, if you weren't born on the cloud, and not lose that core, of who you are and your purpose. So ultimately, we're a pizza company. We're about better ingredients, better pizza. Pizza is going to be the star. Food is going to be the star. Innovation in the food space is the thing that's most important to us. So how do we not lose that while still keeping technology as an enabler front and center for all those customer interactions, all those supply chain interactions? So that's been difficult over the years, because you can get really enamored by the new shiny thing, and really lose focus of what you're there for.
And it sounds like, and I think experientially what we've seen is that your partnership in your organization with the line of business, there seems to be no distinction. Like, you are the core enabler of line of business. And I think that's not always common either, where like IT operates in some silo, and the office of the CIO has been the office of the CIO. Line of business needs this, and the answer is no. But I think that's such an outdated paradigm, that unless that partnership is essentially fluid and is truly a partnership, keeping up with the demands of how the consumer behavior is changing and the market shifting is just impossible.
Yeah, there's a phrase, you've probably heard it before, Tony. called business IT alignment. And I've never really understood that phrase because it instantly creates a division. And I know it's used with the best of intentions, but again, IT is a part of the business. IT is fundamental and integral to the business. So it's really is just a mindset. It starts there. Our CEO Rob Lynch has been great and really across the board, every department, every function, kind of leading that mentality of we have to be in each other's business. We have to understand at least at a high level what all of our collective strategies are, or else we're never going to be able to drive the overall strategy of the company forward. So technology is no exception to that. One of the things that's really helped though in that is just some of the operating rhythms and again back to kind of culture. The team I think has really taken it upon themselves to have some pride in the business aspects and the business results. So instead of just technology type metrics, logs and throughput and things of that nature. Certainly we look at all those and part of our job to be excellent, we have to look at that data every day, but also like being fastidious and going back to the business components, conversion and incremental sales. What is incremental sales? We can define that, right? And all those other aspects that define business outcomes. When the team gets excited about that, you start to see real change. And like you said,
for sure,
you can walk into a room with plenty of Papa John's, technology folks, marketing folks, and restaurant operations folks, and not have any clue who is who, at least for some time, just given the way they work together. So it's pretty neat to see.
That's impressive. So it's about not falling in love with the technology for its own sake, but understanding the direct line to revenue and customer experience. It's a beautiful thing. So pivoting it a little bit, because when you and I prepped for this, it's very seldom that I hear a technology leader talk so passionately about community impact and the role of Papa John's, especially right now in the midst of this crisis, which I think has been the biggest moment of cultural measure, cultural definement for most companies. We all say certain things, or have said certain things, on our website that say this or that about our culture or mission, but there's never been a truer test than the last, 3 or 4 months, with no clear end in sight, right? Like we don't know how long this thing is going to last and the long-term implications beyond the current pandemic of how some of these things that we used to take for granted will change permanently. So what has Papa John's done that you're extremely proud of, that you've seen in the community coming together for each other, but also for all your millions of customers?
Yeah, I guess back to learning, right? One of the advantages and privileges we had was to be able to learn early on. We're a global company, about 50 countries throughout the world, where we're privileged to serve our customers. And so as the pandemic started to sweep across different regions of the world, as an example, we have a number of stores in China, Europe, LATAM, all the parts of the globe. We were able to really in real time get feedback on how to best manage the situation, how to best take care of our customers and our employees' health, just by staying in real close contact with the different regions around the world. When coronavirus escalated within the United States, the fight, so to speak, became very local. So from a DMA standpoint, we started to look at our data more locally than we had ever had before. It actually triggered a lot of work from a data analytics standpoint. I'm really proud of how the cross-functional team across the entire organization stepped up to really dig into that data, because what was happening in New York City versus Atlanta versus Chicago versus Louisville, et cetera, it was not all the same. So learning and staying very close to the data, as localized as possible, were really important early on. I think one of the things that we love is despite the difficulty of the situation, it's been so difficult for so many people, but we feel like we've been able to support our communities best we can, um, uh, in so many ways. So thankful for our franchisees. We have 600 corporate stores, but the rest of our stores are franchised, and a lot of this stuff it's not talked about, it's not heralded, but just to see over and over and over at the ground level, the folks in the restaurants doing the real work, stepping up and helping each other and helping their local neighbors and communities. It was awesome. And with Shakaroni recently, we've had a chance to give back to the community through Shakaroni. So if you're a fan of 66 pepperonis on pizza, 3 cups of cheese on a pizza stretched real big, New York style, go pick up a Shakaroni. It's great.
Love that. Yeah, there's something about food, especially pizza. I don't know. That's like, there's a direct connection to connection and human connection, and it's such an essential, like it's sustenance, right? And the convenience, and like it's a pizza party, right? Like they go together, and they have for generations, and it's amazing how there's a re-emphasis on that, and then a huge emphasis on, to your point earlier, like making the food, the star, but using technology and data to drive the right activities down to the micro communities in which you work. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, pizza definitely is a tool for bringing folks together. Certainly with no contact. In some cases you don't want to be as close, right? And so we try to listen to our customers, like a lot of other brands had to move quickly to say, okay, what's best given the infrastructure we have in place, and our team members, their needs as well. What's best from a no contact delivery, no contact carryout perspective. And again, this was where early on, you think back to March, I think a lot of IT teams, again, above and beyond Papa John's, but a lot of IT teams were able to execute with quality at a speed that they would never have imagined.
Right.
And it goes back to like what we were talking about before, which was just, if you get all aspects of the business aligned, not aligned in a sense of I'll tell you, but aligned in a sense, let's talk and collaborate on something, and you have that singular vision, you can move so fast. And I've heard that from so many other leaders.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed at how fast their teams were able to execute.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into another one of my guests, Chris Beal, is the CIO of a platform company called Connect and Sell. We use the platform. They are also a customer of ours. And he's like, look, we don't talk about enough around how cloud-enabled technology has saved massive parts of the economy. Like, imagine if there was no real easy way to collaborate, or if the only way to order a pizza was a phone call, or you didn't have the data and insights to shift strategy to the ground level, as Papa John's has been able to do, and other companies who are enlightened or has been able to do. And I think it's a great segue into your relationship with cloud, which is a couple of years into it now. And I think you're very measured and methodical in terms of how you invested in various cloud technologies. I know we started our relationship on the map side, the Google Maps platform side, and now expanded to GCP. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. We had shared in our earlier discussions, that nothing there's no silver bullet out there. There's no one thing. And as a lot of us have come to find out, cloud can be fairly amorphous without sort of a reference architecture and without sort of a set of guiding principles. So that was some of the first work that our enterprise architecture team set out to do, was what are the decision-making principles that will help us on this journey. You have to be careful because everyone says I'm on a journey, but you also have to set goals, because if you don't set, again, just like any business person would, specific metrics, specific targets, specific dates, you'll be on a journey for a very long time.
Yes.
And and you might be looking at the roses and looking out the window for a very long time. So, there's a balance that we've found, specifically in cloud, of evolutionary refinement and revolutionary change. And we've had to pick our battles. And you mentioned Google. The initiative that we executed with you all was, from a map standpoint, that was more revolutionary for us. There was a lot of speed that we were after, and candidly, a lot of significant lift and shift that had to be done as part of that particular initiative. If you're in the pizza business, a lot of businesses these days, from a restaurant standpoint, you're also in the logistics business, and there's some complexity behind there. So sometimes you make decisions where you gulp a little bit. You say, "Hey, this is a measured risk I'm taking." In other cases, you test into it. One of my mentors kind of has a phrase. Again, many of you have heard this before, but always define and test your riskiest assumptions. So we've used that in our cloud journey, and really with other emerging technologies as well, in terms of just documenting what do we believe are our riskiest assumptions. If they're wrong, they could really hurt. And what's the lowest cost, kind of Wizard of Oz way we can test that assumption? So combining those two, the evolutionary and the revolutionary, has guided us, certainly, as we've looked to consume more and more of public cloud.
Well, it's been a great journey, and it's probably still very early stages in terms of the potential, right, moving forward as a business continues to evolve and the needs continue to change. And again, you've been in tech for a long time. You've seen many tech stacks and many vendors, and the evolution of cloud itself in terms of what the scale it enables and maybe the cost per performance it enables and other things. What are some of the aspects, whether it's on the MaaS platform or GCP, that you feel like Google Cloud does uniquely in a differentiated way?
In any architecture, when you're evaluating hosting and workloads, and integration of those workloads at the infrastructure and then at the application level, you're thinking about some of the basic ilities. So can I maintain this? Maintainability, the scalability, the availability, security, and even the things that you may have had someone else take care of for you in your IT shop. The kind of incremental run rate of things and the cost of things. So one of the things we appreciate about Google Cloud was there was a real partnership on all of those things. It wasn't like those were second class citizens, so to speak. Up front, actually, it was Google, it was SADA, who were coming to us and saying, "Hey, here's a playbook for this, here's an accelerator for this, or here's what you must be thinking about." Because again, in any environment, again, not unique to cloud, but in any environment where you're hosting data, you need to care about security. You need to care about speed and performance. So that's one thing I definitely have appreciated. I think another piece, and we're learning. There's no silver bullet, but one of the things we started with was data analytics, and you typically contend with data gravity in the architecture of any kind of distributed system, and the speed of light and all those things. But we were able to engineer our store systems, our digital systems, our ERP and back office systems in such a way. In some cases, we're still on like an ETL or ELT type architecture, but more recently, a lot of it is more streaming oriented, event oriented. And there was a lot of native capability, very real time, Tony. And just a lot of native capability in the platform to handle that. And it wasn't, I didn't have to spend $1 bazillion to implement those type of architectures. I didn't have to have a lot of customized software. Our developers could pick up the skill set fairly rapidly, and it felt natural to them. So, one of our early wins, and it gave us some wind in our sails for future things, was really in the data warehousing space. We were able to execute some initiatives that we feel would have taken much, much longer had we taken a different path.
definitely Google provides some things that are in its wheelhouse. If you think about Google as a company over the last 20 years, the capabilities they've had to build to serve their own applications to the public, right? Whether it's Maps or Chrome or the Play Store or any of those things, they've had to master some of those technologies and sort of break new ground. I think BigQuery and the surrounding ecosystem is a part of that architecture that now other organizations can buy by the SIP and scale over time. And also, if I look at the work that we're doing in general, yes, we're still doing a lot of infrastructure modernization work, lift and shift or re-architect or containerize or whatever, right? Anthos is interesting in some large enterprise. But what's building up the fastest is all the work around data engineering. That's where we're hiring the most. That's the biggest pipeline of work. And it just makes sense. You have to modernize architecture, sure, on the infrastructure side, but then the next immediate thing is like, how do I even get my data to a point where I can then build insights out of? Then I can do maybe even predictive modeling out of, right? So the storage of data, that problem has generally been solved in silos because it's not you can store it in certain ways, but then how do you get it to a point where you say, well, it's real time, it has the right structure, right? And then you can build on top of that. And I think that's where companies are going to compete in the future. Like, who's going to have the best handling, like the mastery of their own data to build the best possible company using that sort of superpower.
Yeah, how do you make it as simple as possible as well? Because if you look at where big data, sometimes we cringe a bit, at the buzzword of big data, but you think about the technology underpinnings when that word came on the scene. A lot of it was very kind of Hadoop and HDFS and that whole Avro and that whole ecosystem of technologies. And you almost needed a PhD in configuration management just to make sense of it all, and Yarn and all those other things. And not that anything is without tuning and care. You still have to have those processes and disciplines in the cloud, but you should be spending the majority of your time on engineering, on business initiatives. And I feel like that's the pivot point that we reached, a few years back in public cloud, and specifically with Google here, is spending more of our time analyzing data and less about, the plumbing. And I know that's, a tried and true saying is, we have to spend more time on business differentiating initiatives, but that was the first time where we really felt like, hey, we're seeing it. We're having to spend so much less time on doing the typical things than we have in the past. Here's what's really exciting to me, Tony, is the team, just seeing how much the team learned. And I've learned so much from the team. We had folks who, certainly we brought in some new talent along the way, but some folks who, were just fantastic front-end engineers. Or infrastructure and network engineers or admins, pick up new skill sets. And when you look at the cloud landscape, it's very achievable. And some of those folks were converted to data engineers and kind of fell in love with it. And we've been rocking and rolling on that ever since.
That's very necessary because there's just more demand than supply of talent for the foreseeable future. And I love stories where, even within our organization, as we're able to pivot folks from one set of skills to another. We actually just launched, I think Tuesday was the first day of the SADA University concept, where we take junior engineers, recent graduates from school, plus even internal folks at SADA and teach them. And our first cohort is all going through the data engineering program within SADA as well. And, that's how you retain and grow and develop engineers over time. And also, again, we have this concern. So to use like, how do you create the best and most exciting place for engineers to work, right? Like, and they don't want to be doing maintenance. They want to be doing cool engineering work and impacting the business. That's what they
Yeah,
want to be.
I think sometimes, Tony, we inadvertently make that more difficult than it has to be, because we position innovation as either something that's externalized that an agency is going to bring you, or some special
exactly.
Event is going to bring you. Really, it should be this always on thing.
Totally.
And you can apply it to really anything, right? It's just a different way of looking at a problem, being open again to thinking differently about it, and learning from others. But you can be innovative in the way you operate your IT organization. I tell the team sometimes, how can you help yourself first? Like, what are the innovative things you can do to make your own life easier? You free up some of your own cycles. That's innovation. It doesn't always have to be something that's going to be on the front page of the newspaper.
Totally. I think, to your point, external sources can provide the inspiration, but ultimately, like, the machinery and the culture to be sustainable has to exist within. I loved hearing these insights, and I'm sure our listeners are going to learn quite a bit as well and be inspired, which is the whole point of this thing, is really highlighting leaders and companies who are doing really, really cool things on technology, and of course with a little bit of a Google Cloud angle. But looking forward, what are the things that you're most excited about next few years? Like, what's top of mind for you?
Sure. Tony, the things I'm most excited about is really, really worthwhile problems. So, worthwhile problem may be easy to solve. I think a lot of us enjoy solving hard problems, but our team here at Papa John's, really gets energized by solving worthwhile problems, and we feel like our business and our mission is really generating a lot of those great things for us. I'll give you some examples. We have a lot of opportunity, I think, in the delivery space, whether that's through our supply chain and all the sourcing aspects from our quality control centers down to our stores, or from our stores to the customer. There's no secret that in the industry there's been a lot of innovation in delivery recently. And from a logistics standpoint, we feel there's still some worthwhile problems to solve there. Things that can make our drivers' lives so much easier and better, can elevate their experience, and can also elevate our customers' experience and that interaction. We feel like the traditional channels of our website, our mobile apps, some of the other things we do with Apple TV, with Alexa, with Facebook, et cetera, those will continue to stand and grow in their own right. But we've spent a lot of time thinking about, where is the customer? Where is the customer today? And the reality is there's still a lot of innovation left in the phone channel.
Sure.
We have a lot of customers who still call the store.
Of course, yeah.
And so how can we leverage technology? Again, technology in the background. Food is the star, but and the customer is first and foremost. But how can we leverage technology to make that a better experience for the customer, a quicker experience, a less error-prone experience, right? So those are some things we get really excited about, and being able to do that in a more iterative fashion, where it can be less big bang, and again, where we can test our risky assumptions up front where need be. So that's what I get excited about. And where I see some of the industry going, I think, is really this mindset of data democracy. Data democracy in of itself doesn't help you. So I can throw all the data in the world at you and say self-serve on it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna tell me, Justin, where's the insight? But you have to start with a good foundation of data. And you can't be in an e-commerce business or a consumer-facing business, or any business in which you're claiming to drive through the lens of the customer, if you don't really understand your customer. So, in my mind, it's that hierarchy. You have to master your customers. You have to have good, clean, quality data, and you have to have data management processes to generate that. But then you need to really, I think, inspire each and every person that you touch. And again, inside IT, outside IT, that really insight is part of everyone's job description.
Yeah.
So, for me, that's where I think a lot of our industry is going. I hope is going is converting folks who maybe thought their job was to just look at a laptop and operate a process into, hey, you have an opportunity every time you touch a system, every time you touch a piece of data, to really share a business insight with someone. So I think I think that is powerful for Papa John's. I think it's going to be a big deal in the retail industry going forward.
I completely agree. And what's exciting is with everything that has already transformed in the last several years, how much more innovation and excitement there is still ahead. Just scratching the surface of what's possible. I think we're going to see science fiction-like capabilities very soon as AI and ML become more of a packaged and commercial things, like we've seen with dialogue flow and contact center AI as sort of a starting point of a commercial application around transforming the traditional, the phone experience, which has been around for, 100+ years. Really excited to continue to support you for many years to come. What I love about this ecosystem and our customers is if we do our job well, we can stay relevant to you for a lifetime. And, that's always our objective. And I really appreciate you coming on Cloud and Clear and sharing your point of view. I've learned a lot, and I know our listeners will as well. Thank you, Justin.
Tony, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @CloudandClear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.